What happens when you take the above average and intelligent person and give them routine and repetitious work? I know you know this, Huascar.
Yeah, they're gonna naturally get bored and disillusioned and want to move on. Exactly.
Exactly. Hello, and welcome back to Lawfully Employed for Legal Rebels and Disruptors. I'm Chere B. Estrin, Chere Bunny Estrin, actually, and I'm so excited about our guest today. We have an icon, a superstar, a big name in the industry. What can I say? A good friend. I'll put it to you that way, and somebody I can whine to whenever I have a problem. And he's so patient with me. Oh my God, he's so patient with me because I can whine. Let me introduce Huascar Matos, who is the paralegal director at an AM law firm, Foley, Lardner. And I want to say this about that. A director of paralegals is a highly unusual position. You are in the C-suite for this. You make some very nice dollars. Huascar, I hope you don't mind my saying so, but we're so proud of you leading the way. But you do. You earn a C-suite salary. You're considered upper management. It's a whole new field and a whole new position for paralegals who want to climb that basically invisible ladder, because that's what it is. So I'm really proud to and pleased and honored and flattered, whatever it takes, to have Huascar here today. So welcome, Huascar.
Thank you for having me, Sherry, and you're making me blush with all these accolades. Hopefully, I can live up to all of them. I am really thrilled and excited to be here and kind of share my thoughts and insights and what my path has been and kind of like where I stand with respect to the paralegal profession and where it stands today, and then looking beyond and where I see it going.
Okay, well, let's get into that. I know that we can talk the same old, trite, boring, yawning type of thing about what it takes to make a good paralegal. And you have to be, oh gosh, should I run this? Detail oriented, profitable, know your stuff, yada, 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 yada. Do they say yada, yada anymore? Well, I'm saying it. Uh, and that's not what we want today. Today, what we're after is I've noticed for a long time, actually, we'll say 20 years, but it's really more, that paralegals don't necessarily have a climb up the ladder. In many firms, it's once a paralegal, always a paralegal. You get stuck in this kind of a vacuum, and everything is everything, to coin a California phrase. So, what I'm after today is some new, fresh ideas. And Huascar and I were talking about a way to revolutionize the paralegal field. And it's not just that you have to know your stuff, but it's that you really need to be motivated, you need to be engaged, and maybe you want to move up a ladder that might not exist in your particular firm. Now, I will say that a number of the AM law firms do have what we call tiered paralegal programs, meaning you can start out as a paralegal 1, a paralegal 2, a paralegal 3, whatever significance that has. You can move into a senior paralegal position. But all in all, these are still kind of generic, vague titles, and they mean one thing for one firm. They don't necessarily mean the same for another firm. There's no standardization in the paralegal field as a whole. And look, paralegals have been around since what, 1975? That's before a lot of you were born. Not me, but a lot of you were born. So we've seen tremendous growth. We've seen paralegals taking over associate assignments, which is great. We've seen more specialization than ever before. The pandemic changed a lot of things in terms of how we work, but we still haven't seen anything, any definition, any real definition. I mean, I'm not talking about the ABA who defines a paralegal as yada, yada, yada. There I go again. But a design program. And so, what we want to talk about today is revolutionizing the paralegal field. So, just going to throw this out. All right. Are you ready, Huascar?
I'm
Are
ready.
you ready?
I'm ready. Give me your best.
Okay. Here's my take on it. And I know you and I had a similar discussion. I think that we, meaning the paralegal field, need to change. And what I'm looking at are model programs such as the nursing field. Now, paralegals are the helping occupation. Sorry about that. And nurses are the helping occupation. A nurse is not necessarily going to be promoted to be a doctor. And a paralegal isn't necessarily going to be promoted to be a partner unless there's something going on I don't know about. But this new thing where you don't have to be an attorney to own a law firm, very interesting. However, my opinion is that the paralegal field, which needs a lot of definition, should follow a a pattern whereby you have to qualify in order to be a certain level. So let's take a look at the nursing field. In the nursing field, you can start out as an LVN, a licensed vocational nurse, or maybe start out as a nurse's aide, move to a licensed vocational nurse, move up to a certified nursing assistant, whatever the pattern is, move into a registered nurse, move into a physician's assistant, and move into I'm missing one. Okay, this
Nurse
is not age.
practitioner.
Yes,
Nurse.
thank you. Okay, it's not age, it's information overload, right? Okay, we're not aging here. We got information
Yeah.
overload. But when I look at that, what do they have to do? They have to qualify for each particular title, each particular position. And why aren't the paralegals doing that? Why do we have to expect an entry level paralegal to behave or perform at a senior level paralegal position? Why do we have to expect or pay for, the client has to pay for a 10-year, say, litigation paralegal who's really performing at the 1 to 2 year level and getting billed for it? Okay. So a lot of these firms are not making the distinction. They're just not making the distinction. And I really believe that if we give this kind of incentive to paralegals, we are going to find a whole host of wonderful changes. The pipeline to work is no longer going to be clogged. Paralegals are, let's face it, above average in intelligence. And what happens when you take the above average and intelligent person and give them routine and repetitious work? I know you know the SWAT car.
Yeah. They naturally get bored and and disillusioned and want to move on. Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
Exactly. And then we have turnover, we have boredom, they're just suiting
Hmm.
up and showing up from 9 to 5. They come to see me and say, Sherry, get me out of here, right? Which I don't mind seeing you, but I hate to see people who are bored on the job. My opinion, you hear me say this over and over again, you got to get up in the morning and love it, or don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah.
So let's start. Tell me your take on something like this. Where do you see this? Is this feasible? Are we out there? Are we off base? What's your take on it?
No, it's certainly feasible, and I think one of the challenges um, is that we don't really have a standardization across the board from one firm to the next, right? So I take it the equivalent of the skills, while many of your experience, years of experience, and known skills in some cases might be transferable going to a different firm, the standards are different. Similarly, if I attended junior college and then I want to make the leap to a university, there's certain credits that don't transfer over. It's different measures for each firm, and across, and we see that from firm to firm. um, with the paralegals is no different. What we might do at Foley might be different than what another firm does with respect to the profession itself. my personal take on this, and this comes from not only being a paralegal myself for many years, but what I've seen in the legal field and from talking to peers and colleagues alike, is that you really kind of have to ingrain a sense of accountability at every level. So while many firms might have tiers, or different levels, or some sort of progression or a pathway, or career pathway, if you will, the accountability component is lacking. The skill set measuring component is lacking. Um, One of the things that I certainly do at every stop that I've ever had is to kind of really reiterate and reinforce the accountability aspect, that simply because you've been a paralegal for 5 6 years doesn't automatically make you a senior paralegal. Might not even make you a level 2 paralegal. That does not, the years of service do not dictate what your title should be. Similarly, you could argue or see that individuals, sometimes the hardest workers, are not the ones that are promoted, but the ones who ask the most intuitive questions, have the greater insight, are looking at the big picture, usually are the ones who identify as leaders. And for good reason, right? They're questioning the norm and they're pushing the envelope. And you want that out of your leaders. With the paralegal profession, I think that that's the one component that you really see where it really differentiates what each program does from firm to firm. So I am a big proponent of making sure that the accountability piece is in place at every stop I've been to. So, I like to kind of formulate processes around whether it's vetting individuals who are being considered for leadership roles, whether it's a coordinator or a supervisory function within the paralegal ranks, that we're vetting those individuals for those character traits, that they have the correct disposition character to be in this position. And sometimes you would have an exceptional paralegal, but quite frankly, they don't have those components. Maybe they're just that Kobe Bryant. They're a great scorer, doesn't necessarily doesn't share the ball or wants to do anything else across the board, right? So, you kind of really have to put these measures in place to identify these individuals.
But wait a
Um,
minute, wait a minute. Isn't this kind of like really subjective and it's kind of esoteric? Well, this is a good paralegal compared to what? Compared to the next paralegal on the staff? Okay, so you're promoting this paralegal to paralegal two because they're better than, let's say Jane is better than John. Okay, so in that comparison, right? Well, Jane is better than John, so we're going to promote Jane. It doesn't mean that person necessarily should get promoted. It just means it's very subjective, okay, or maybe they met their billable hours, which is not always in the paralegal's control, right? If the pipeline isn't
mhm.
working correctly. And so you're comparing people to people. You're not saying this is the standardized requirement in order for you to be promoted. You're not saying that. You're just comparing people to people. And so it's like the analogy I give. I'm a 10, you're a 10, everybody in this room is a 10, right? Okay. And so the 10 says, I don't really need another 10 to be me. What I need is a paralegal who's really a 9. Okay. So the 9 says, I'm a 10, you're a 10, everybody in this room is a 10. So the 9 says, I don't really need somebody equal to what I'm doing. So I'm going to hire an 8. And pretty soon you walk into a room of 3s and you don't know what hit you. Okay. It's degenerative hiring. It's degenerative standardization. And I think that's what we're going on. So as much as a firm can say, yeah, Jane's doing a good job, but in actuality, what you're saying is Jane's doing a better job than John, right? There's no there's no standardization in terms of how you judge that person. Accountability, accountability, all right? Okay, accountability, yes. I don't know a paralegal who walks into the job and says, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be accountable today. I don't think so. It's kind of like saying, when I site check, I screw up, right? We don't do that. Everybody thinks that they are accountable, whether they are or they're not. So, how do you bring this all to fruition? How do you stop comparing on your staff one to the other and then saying, this one is promoted because they're better than that one? Because that's basically what's happening. What do you think?
Well, well, that's a great point. Very fair point as well. I think that the other layer to that, in terms of the accountability aspect, of the actual, measuring of the skill sets, which is something we certainly do at my firm. And you have to have the demonstrated skill sets. It's not simply just, you have to hit X number of billable hours, which we all, every firm out there throws the, you have to get this number in order to kind of move up or get into this role. But I think that the most important piece is, does that person have the actual skill set, right? I can't just take an entry level nurse and tell her to go run a practice, right? You kind of have to
No.
work yourself up those levels, and you have to demonstrate those skills over time. I can tell you right now, there's paralegals who are still at a level one and probably will remain at a level one until they demonstrate the required skill sets to move up to the next level. I think that's the
Why do you
important
keep them?
part, and I
Why
think,
do you keep them? Why would you keep them? Why keep them?
That's a good point. But we do have. This is why we have different levels, I would say, right? And the most entry level point for myself is what sometimes are called or referred to as a legal assistant, project assistant, practice. We all have different titles depending on what firm we're talking about. But it's that most
Sure.
junior level where someone who's coming fresh out of college has an interest in law, wants to
We're
kind of
frozen
get
here.
exposure, and you kind of help develop and bring them along. uh, we still have that, but that paralegal one does serve its purpose. Now, what I would say, and this is the reality of it, Sherry, that anyone who wants to continue to be successful is going to have to elevate their skill sets over time. It's my job in my role to not only make sure that we're replicating best practices, but at bare bones that I'm developing every one of my paralegals from the lowest tier up to the highest. Even my immediate managers, I am working to develop so they can reach that next level. And I think that emphasis needs to continue throughout. So, yeah, that paralegal level one might have sat there for a number of years, but it's my job as the leader to get them to the next level. It's no different than if we set a bonus program or some sort of incentive program and we say you got to get to this point in order to be rewarded. It's the leadership's job to make sure that those individuals, and that you get as many individuals over the line as possible, right? That's why you're there to lead.
But what is the line? See, so in other words, is there, like, for example, take an entry level paralegal and they can't yet write a great complaint, or they don't really know yet how to write a great pleading of whatever, or do a great mergers and acquisition, or a trust and estate plan, or something like that. So, what is the criteria by which you measure? There's no real criteria. Is
Well,
it your opinion? Or do they have to make certain adjustments to their work? What do we do here?
I can't get into secrets, but I can tell you right now, I am not a fan of the subjective idea, whether it's bonuses, rate. I am never a fan of any subjective. There's always the uh, unconscious bias that lies within all of us. So I don't like the subjective measuring. It should be a measurable component, like everything. In order to have goals, you have to be able to measure what those goals are. Skill sets are no different. If I'm bringing you to be an editor, and I don't have you edit a number of pieces and submit some sort of writing, are you the necessarily the best editor out there? How do I know that you're my chief editor or my lead editor? It's no different with paralegals, and I think it's important that anyone who's in this field holds their paralegals accountable to those standards. And it's not simply that we're going to promote people from one level to the next without demonstrating those skill sets. So, what does that look like? Because that was your question. Well, you got to,
Yeah.
first of all, develop career clear pathways for individuals that they can kind of aspire to achieving. You have to put markers at each one of those levels that they must demonstrate, consistent demonstration at each one of those skill sets before they can move up. Forget the billable hours. Demonstrated
Yeah.
skill sets consistently. I can get into within the paralegal who might be struggling, and we put them in the form performance improvement plan. And they do great for the first 2 weeks and then they go right back to the same habits. I need consistent demonstration at that level before you can be considered to move up. And that varies at each tier, whether it's you must learn how to write a formal notice, subpoenas at this very big level, and completely master it before moving on. And that being the key word, you should be mastered the actual skill before moving on, because once you get to the next level, well, you'll have a whole nother set of skills that you must now master and demonstrate consistently. You're also in position to then mentor and help develop those below you. And at every level, it's important that you are doing that. And we're not seeing that consistently, and not at every firm. I
No,
can tell
we're
you
not
that.
seeing that really basically at all. And I'll tell you something. I wanted to mention that Huascar is the president of IPMA, the International Practice Management Association, of which I am a co-founding member. But we're not going to say how long ago that was because, we're just not, because I am a woman of a certain age and I'm proud of it. But he is president of that, and so I don't want to alienate any of our paralegal manager friends and colleagues because they're doing a great job. Howsomever, I don't know a firm that isn't that subjective, okay, because there's nothing to measure it. If you hit these points in drafting your brief, then you can move up. But otherwise, it's, yeah, this looks good. Yeah, there's an improvement. There's no, again, we're going back to the standardization. Where is it? Let me ask you another question because years ago, I'm not going to say how many years, I was giving a talk. That's when we used to do in front of people, really in front of people. And I broached the topic of, drumroll please, licensing. And I said at some point, not in the next couple of years, but at some point, paralegals are going to be licensed. Wow. It was a room full of 200 people. 200 people. I thought that they were going to throw rotten tomatoes at me. I thought the eggs were coming. They weren't $20 a carton at that point. But I thought that they literally asked me to leave. They were so mad at me. They were so angry at me. I almost didn't know how to handle it, right? And boy, did I get the mail afterwards about how could you say that? What could you do? So what am I saying here? I think that licensing is a good thing for paralegals. They do it in Canada. Okay. It's working to a certain extent on certain things. And I think that I'll maintain that, 20 years later, that we're headed towards licensing. What do you think about that? Do you think that the paralegal field is ready to buy off on that? That they're really ready to accept it? Do you think that attorneys are going to push back because they're going to think that the paralegals are interfering with their revenue? What do you think about this on licensing? Because I'll tell you right now, it's coming. It is
I,
coming.
I,
I will bet you 25 cents. I never go more than 25 cents on that one.
I'm not hard to disagree. What I'll do is just I'll give you my perspective on it.
Yeah, please.
I
Because,
think, I think, I'm not sure full fledged the licensing component, but I think will we require verifiable certifications? Absolutely. It's no different than if you're saying you're blue book certified, you must have some sort of certification that you tested for that says you can do this with the best of them, right? To prove
yes,
that you have really demonstrated that skill. I think with paralegals is no different. And this goes for many of the paralegals who had great success and embraced the opportunity when e-discovery came along and adapted and took on and learned that skill set and really charted a whole career for themselves with the introduction of e-discovery. Some of these are by far the best PMs that you see out there. They're not really the tech guys. They started from their paralegal roots up, but they had an interest on that tech side and they merged the two, right? So those certifications, such as maybe mastering, trial demonstratives, software like OnQ, getting certified in those things, getting certified in relativity, getting certified on AI prompting, which is going to be the next big thing for paralegals. And anyone who can't see that will be left behind. It's not a thing about, oh, I'll catch up later. No, you will literally be left behind if you do not get on that, because the
Let me
integration
interject
of that
this.
will be even bigger.
Certification. I want to make sure that our audience understands the difference between a certified paralegal and a certificated paralegal, because I even see law firms advertising for a certified paralegal, and they don't mean that. What they mean is they want a paralegal with a certificate. So please, if you're making this mistake, and here's the mistake. If you take the 2.5 day exam from NALA and pass it, then you can put the initial CP after your name. It's the same thing as a certified public accountant. They have to take an exam from a
Hmm.
third party in order to be certified. When you get a certificate from your paralegal school, that is a certificate of completion. So please do not make the mistake and call yourself a certified paralegal when what you have is a certificate. Now, I will tell you, and Oscar, maybe you have some feelings on this. Never, ever in 20 some odd years of recruiting and staffing and paralegal management and on, have I ever had a request from a firm for a certified paralegal. When they're asking me for a certified paralegal, they're generally making a mistake, and they mean they want somebody with a certificate. So while I'm all for certifications, I'm with you. The employers are not recognizing that. They don't understand that you have to have really super sharp skills in order to pass this test, because something like 80% flunk it the first time
Hmm.
around. They flunk it the first time around.
Yep.
Most people have to take it twice in order to pass. So I'm all for certification along with licensing, because it is a test that does prove your skills or prove them somewhat. And I think that we need to get the word out to law firms as to what a value this is to both the law firm and the paralegal. So that's my take, and we can go back to the licensing. But I am all for licensing. I
Well,
really am. Nurses are licensed, are they not?
we're gonna
Nurses,
we're yeah
nurses are what?
we're gonna continue banter. I'm gonna play devil's advocate to you. One could always
Okay.
argue, even with the certifications, um, right? There's the argument that could be made that I might get, the attorney or associate from Harvard's top of the class. Does that make him an automatic instant hit when he joins the firm? So whether they got barred in New York or California, some of the harder states to get barred in, doesn't necessarily translate that because you were good at taking a test that
Right.
you will demonstrate those skills. So we need to
Right.
kind of really be careful with that. So while we could put those things in place, I think we need to still, objectively look at the bigger picture and say, okay, well, there might be somebody here who can still kind of come in and be a rock star. It's kind of like when we put, say you need a bachelor's in order to work at a Cravath or work or whatever. Well, I can tell you, I have met paralegals without a college degree who, one, write better than some who have been in college
Yes.
and
Right.
operate like a 4 or 5 year attorney. That is a
Right.
fact. So
Right.
you would accidentally alienate a host of other, and as you said, untapped geniuses that have this skill, I mean, we see it all the time. Some of these folks who've started the most profitable companies never went to college.
That's right. That's right. Well, I'm used to alienating people, so that's not, that's okay with me. I'm used to alienating people, but I certainly respect their point of view. I really do, and I think that this is a very delicate topic because we have no real history on it. And if
Hmm.
we, I mean, this is the legal field. If we had precedent, that would be a different story. But we don't. The one of the problems with the paralegal field is we continue to make it up as we go along. We are. There's no real huge consensus on almost anything other than the paralegals have to be qualified, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, there's agreement there. But how do you get the word out as to how to change people's minds, or at least, not have 200 people ask you to leave a conference, right? How do you change people's thinking? Because we write articles, we do lectures, but we're not changing any minds. How do we do that? What would you say?
Oh, changing the mindset. I think any time we're talking about management, it is a very very delicate situation, and getting people to see what is not immediately in front of them can be just as hard as sometimes when success is staring you or an opportunity staring you right in the face and you go right past it, right? The two kind of the two spectrums in a weird way kind of live simultaneously next to each other. And now I'm going into whole physics, which I do not understand, but it's kind of like the same in the same space at the same time. So going with changing the mindset, I think that really falls on leaderships. I think those individuals who are kind of really setting the standards for how their individual programs are set up to be the ones driving that, and that's something that I certainly take very seriously with my group. And it's very important to me, as I've kind of moved my way up. I think my biggest
You
challenge is
did
still
work your
having
way
that
up. Yeah.
is having that immediate connection to my paralegals, because that is an advantage to me. Having those conversations, those one-on-ones, to get their
Mm-hmm.
thoughts on what
Mm-hmm.
their challenges are, what they'd like to see, what their mindset is, more importantly, right? We saw the devastation that we had when we went through COVID and the pandemic,
Yeah.
and what that did to many. So when the changing mindsets, it's always something that for any leader, I think you need to first, in order to have that connection, you need to gain their trust, and their trust comes from those conversations. So I can put together a great speech, motivational, with the best of them, maybe chat
Yeah, you
GPT it to
can.
really
Yeah.
to kind of put it up there. But how much value does it have in me being able to get those individuals motivated to see the vision and where we're the path that we're charting if I don't have their trust? So I will bring it back to that. The change
Well,
mindset comes from that trust.
Another thing is, and this is maybe it's my sales background, okay, or my theater background. I don't know, but here's
Yeah.
something that's always worked, and that is to appeal to the mindset of the law firm. And law firms are highly competitive. They are
Hmm.
okay, highly competitive, particularly in this day and age. And what works with law firms is if the guy down the street is doing it, they want to do it. Okay. So if another competitive firm is doing it, let's say changing the paralegal or revolutionizing their paralegal program, other firms want to tag on to that, assuming they're successful, of course. But other firms want that. And that is the mindset because it's a highly competitive action that they take. And one of the ways to do this that I found is a great technique is to not change everything all at once, but to do an experiment. Because if it fails, you don't fail. What fails is the experiment. The experiment failed. And so nobody has mud all over their face because let's face it, the legal field is a niche, small industry compared to a lot of industries. And so we don't want failure all over our face. So if you try this as an experience, dear firm, we're going to try this as an experiment for the next 12 months and see and monitor it and see how it goes. And if it fails, the experiment failed. Nobody has mud on their face. And that is a solid technique I have used for years and it works. And I would like to see some of these firms get on board, maybe band together. I don't know about antitrust. I don't know about that. But band together in terms of pushing this field forward and stop making it this kind of nebulous, can't figure it out, mishmash of a field, and make it something where people can really be senior level, like vice presidents or something like that. That gives them a lot of pride. Now, is that for everybody? No, it's not for everybody. But for those who want to succeed in that manner, we should be giving them that opportunity, and we're not. So I would like to see a few of these techniques into play. And again, I'm going to bet you that 25 cents, I never go more than 25 cents, that it's going to work, right? I'll bet you 25 cents. I don't go higher than that. So I think that if we can just band together and just get a small group to get buy-in, I think we're going to see a huge improvement. That's what I think.
I would see. I just don't see how that's kind of like saying that Apple's gonna really partner up with Microsoft and say we're going to do this together. They're competing against each other, right? So one is trying to outdo the other. But I would say and agree with you wholeheartedly that firms are naturally competitive. I mean, even from within the
Yeah.
internal structures, we're very hierarchical, and it's just the nature of the legal profession. Um, but that does not stop us from individually, or even if we can possibly do it collectively, as a profession, really kind of setting a standard across the board of what that looks like, and what those career pathways look like. I do think that the biggest thing that any the paralegals that I've talked to really struggle with, again, is like you said, that complacency, boredom, from kind of feeling like they have nowhere to go.
Right.
Right, you don't want to, it's like taking a genius and telling him that he's just only going to play with Legos for the rest of his life. You're kind of,
Sure.
you're wasting the possibilities that could possibly be limitless. So I think it's important for us to not just do it within our respective firms, but to do it for the whole profession, so that people really kind of have an understanding of what it is to be a paralegal, what kind of career you can chart for yourself, what the steps are, and that they're identifiable, right? So that's something that I'm in the midst of kind of really structuring and putting in place at my existing firm, and rolling out, because you really do need that. That's going to come about,
Yes.
and whether it's levels and then a senior status, or higher up, introduction to some sort of supervisory position that can then lend itself for them to make a transition into the management, because that's always going to come up. I know that was a challenge for myself when I had to make that leap, where the first thing that came out is, well, have you interviewed, have you ever approved
Mhm.
time cards, have you done this, have you
Mhm.
done that? If you've just been a paralegal, whether you've been great at it for many years, doesn't make means that you're a manager, and they're going to
Yeah.
ask you these questions. So where's
Yeah.
the opportunity for those paralegals to pick up those skill sets, right? So we need to kind of be better about laying that framework out, for a career path, and to your point, not doing it just at one shop, but doing it across the board and holding all
Right.
paralegals who aspire to get into the profession to the same standards.
Well, here's the thing. Huascar speaks from wisdom. He speaks from experience. He clawed his way up, literally clawed his way up. I'm not being facetious. I mean that. He's a success story. And so I really believe you need to listen to what he says. Now, below, you'll see the website for IPMA, the International Practice Management Association. I encourage you to join. They do have certain requirements, but I have never been to a better conference than what they put on. I have never been to better meetings than what they put on. They are so good, and they make you think, and they make you get excited about the profession. Even if you're not a manager, you must have some provision for wannabe
Yeah,
managers. I'm not
for
sure about
aspiring we do for aspiring managers, and leaders. So we welcome anyone who is interested in kind of following that path, and for those who are existing managers who want to take their careers to the next level, we welcome you all to the IPMA. It is a
that.
wonderful organization and
It,
really the
it's
premier.
the best. I mean, I love certain organizations, ALA and certain others. I mean, of course, I love them, but well, maybe being a co-founding member, I'm particularly partial, right? But I'll tell you something. I could put all the ads and social marketing that I want in to promote my business, which, of course, as you know, is staffing, education, that sort of thing. But nothing carries me more than these paralegal managers. I can pick up the phone and ask for advice. And first of all, they don't think it's a silly question, right? Second
Mm.
of all, they'll give me the benefit of their experience. And if they don't have the answer, they'll point me in the right direction. I couldn't ask for a better network. I really couldn't.
Yeah.
And now, drumroll please, I'm going to announce the publishing of my new book. Okay, I have a new book coming out. It'll be out in just a couple of weeks. And the name of it is okay. The name of it is, I was going to say Lawfully Employed. That's the podcast. Power Plays for Legal Professionals: How to Propel Your Career Forward. And there, Huascar has his story in there, and a wonderful picture. Oh my God, he's so professional. And I'd say handsome, but your wife might get mad at me, right? But he's got a great article in there. There are articles by other people with a tremendous amount of wisdom. And there's 20 years worth of advice, or we don't say advice anymore, we say suggestions in the book. So get on my blog, that's estrinreport.com, and pre-order. Okay. And it's going to be in ebook, soft copy, or audio. It'll be coming out. And I'm very, very excited about it. It's my 11th book. And it's just like writing the first one. It's just like,
Yeah.
right? It's the same excitement. So there's our website. There's the website of IPMA. There's my website. Please reach out to me at Chere@estrinlegalstaffing.com. I will get back to you practically immediately. It's not only about placement, but it's about if I can help you in your career, please ask. And I'm there. Thank you so much. Huascar, you were fabulous. Just
Thank you,
fabulous.
Sherry. This was great. Always happy to share any insights in the legal profession and kind of help propel others forward with which what I believe has been a very rewarding career from myself,
Yes.
as well
Yes.
as to many. So um, I would encourage everyone who's in the management position to head over to IPMA.org and really give us a look, because there's some really powerful people that you'll meet there with some amazing ideas that can really help you take your career to the next level. So
Well, thank you again. Thank you to my production crew, who is fabulous. Mark is sitting out there taking care of us, and so it's really great. And this is Chere Estrin, and I'll see you next time.